Hello my dear students, I welcome you all to our channel Learn 24. So in the last class we have already covered about the male reproductive system. Now let's start with a new topic, right? So the new topic for this video is female's reproductive system. So in this video we will be talking about female's reproductive system. Alright, so this is the structure of the entire female reproductive system. So let's just start where let's just understand this diagram completely, right? So talking about the female's reproductive system, here you can see a wide area, right? So this passage is called as vagina, which further moves through cervix and enters the uterus, and then it moves through a narrow passage which is nothing but the fallopian tube, or you can call it as oviducts, and then it reaches to ovary, okay? And this ovary is attached to the uterus's wall through an ovarian ligament, okay? So it's the simplest way to understand this entire diagram, that is, it moves from the vagina through the cervix, enters the cervical canal, moves to the uterus, and from the uterus it goes to a narrow passage. This passage is called as fallopian tube, and then it will reach to the ovary, and this ovary is attached to the uterus within a wall which is called as ovarian ligament, okay? So this is the entire structure of female's reproductive system. Okay, so let's just talk about what and all it consists of. So talking about what exactly does this entire female reproductive system consist of, first of all, it consists of a pair of ovaries. That means there are two ovaries which is present here, okay? So the female reproductive system, it's not organ, it's system. This system consists of a pair of ovary and also the accessory duct, and it contains accessory glands, and also it contains mammalian gland, and then it also contains an external genitalia. So it consists of 5 things in total, okay? So it consists of a pair of ovaries, accessory ducts, accessory glands, mammalian glands, and external genitalia. And talking about accessory duct in specific, accessory duct consists of a pair of oviducts, consists of uterus, it consists of cervix, and it consists of vagina, okay? So we'll be talking about all of this in detail, okay? So in this video we will be talking about pair of ovaries and the accessory ducts. Those are pair of oviducts, uterus, cervix, and vagina. So this is what we are gonna cover in this particular video, right? So talking about ovaries. So when we are talking about ovaries in case of female's reproductive system, it is a primary sex organ, okay? So it's from ovaries where the ovum is produced, which is nothing but the gamete itself in case of female, right? So from ovaries itself the ovums are produced. So that is why it is considered to be a primary sex organ, okay? So it produces a female gamete which is nothing but the ovum, and also it produces a steroid hormone which is called as the ovarian hormones, okay? So it produces ovum and also it produces a steroid hormone which is called as ovarian hormones. Now talking about the length of ovary, the ovary's length is 2 to 4 in centimeter, and like I have shown you in the structure itself, the ovary is basically attached to the wall of uterus, that is, consider this to be uterus, and the ovary is basically attached to the wall of uterus by a ligament, and this ligament is nothing but the ovarian ligament, right? Now each of this particular ovary is basically covered by a thin epithelium which encloses a ovarian stroma. So here you can see the female reproductive system. Inside the female reproductive system, this is where our ovaries are present. Okay, so this yellow part is the ovary itself. So like I said, there is an ovarian stroma which is present. That is, the ovary is covered by a thin epithelium which encloses the ovarian stroma, right? So talking about this stroma is divided into two zones, and those two zones are peripheral cortex and also inner medulla. Okay, so this stroma is divided into two zones, and those two zones are peripheral cortex and inner medulla, right? So that was our ovary. Okay, so we have already covered the first part of the female reproductive system. Talking about the accessory duct in case of female, the accessory duct involves the oviduct, which is nothing but the fallopian tube, and it contains uterus, and then it contains vagina. So the oviduct, or you can call it as the fallopian tube, it is present in pairs. Okay, so this particular structure is present in pairs, and the other one is uterus, and the next one is vagina. So we will be talking about this one by one. So let's just discuss about the oviduct itself. So this is the pelvis view of female's reproductive system. Here you can see vagina and also clitoris and urethra. Okay, so let's just talk about the oviduct first. That is the first accessory duct which is present in case of female. Okay, talking about oviduct, like as I said, oviduct are present in pairs. Here you can see these are present in pairs. Okay, one oviduct is here and another oviduct is here. So this particular structure, this entire structure is what oviduct is. Okay, so the entire oviduct is basically divided into many regions. So let's just discuss about oviduct in detail, right? So oviduct's length is 10 to 12 in centimeter, and like I said, the entire oviduct is divided into few regions. Okay, so this is the oviduct. This oviduct is present in few different regions, and that is infundibulum, fimbriae, ampulla and isthmus. So entire oviduct is basically present in four or divided in four parts, that is infundibulum, fimbriae, ampulla and isthmus, right? So let's just discuss what actually this infundibulum is. So talking about infundibulum, by the definition itself, you could get an idea about where this structure is. That is, it is a funnel shaped structure which is close to the ovary. So here the ovary will be present, and this funnel shaped structure is what we can call it as infundibulum. Okay, so this is the infundibulum, and fimbriae is a finger like projection which is helping in the collection of ovum. That is, this structure, this finger like projection is called as fimbriae, and this structure will help in collecting the ovum, right? Next is ampulla, which is the wider part of oviduct. So this part is called as ampulla. Okay, the wider part of the entire oviduct is called as ampulla, and the isthmus is a narrow lumen which leads to uterus. So this narrow path is the isthmus, which will eventually lead to the uterus itself. Okay, so the oviduct consists of four parts, that is infundibulum, fimbriae, ampulla and isthmus, right? So this finger like structure is fimbriae, then it moves through infundibulum and reaches ampulla, and then it goes through a narrow path and reaches the uterus, that is isthmus. Okay, so this was the entire oviduct. Now moving on towards the second accessory duct system, which is uterus. Uterus is also known as womb. Okay, so inside the uterus itself the baby is being developed, right? So this is the uterus. This uterus can also be called as womb. Okay, so talking about the shape of the uterus, it is in a shape of an inverted pear. Here you can see it is in a shape of an inverted pear, and the uterus opens to vagina through a narrow cervix, which is called as the cervical canal. Okay, so the uterus is basically opens through a narrow cervix. This cervix is called as the cervical canal to the vagina. Okay, so this is the uterus. It is moving through a narrow canal, which is the cervix, and that canal is called as the cervical canal to the vagina. So this cervical canal and vagina together makes the birth canal. So like I said, uterus is considered as the womb. Okay, so the baby is being brought up here, that is the fetus is being developed inside the uterus, and at the time of delivery this will act as that is the cervical canal, and the vagina will act as the birth canal. Alright, so let me show you all of the structure in the female reproductive systems diagram itself. So like I said, here you can see the ovary and how the ovum is being collected from a finger-like projection, right? So this finger-like projection is called as fimbriae. Then it will move through a funnel-shaped structure, which is called as infundibulum, and opens to a wider part, which is the ampulla, moves through a narrow path, which is the isthmus, reaches the uterus, this is the uterus, and goes through the cervical canal to the vagina, and the cervical canal and the vagina together makes the birth canal. Okay, so this together makes the birth canal. Alright, so this were the oviducts and the uterus. Moving on and talking about the wall of uterus itself, the uterus wall is basically divided into 3 layers. Okay, so there is a 3-layer of tissues which we can see on the uterus's wall, and those 3 layers are perimetrium, myometrium and endometrium. Let me show you that structure. Okay, this one. So this is the female reproductive system. You have already seen this structure, right? So this was the uterus. So and this is the uterus's wall. So like I said, there is 3 layers of tissues which we can see on the wall of uterus. The outermost layer is called as perimetrium. Okay, so this layer is called as perimetrium, and the middle layer is called as myometrium, and the innermost layer is called as endometrium. Okay, I will tell you the function of each and every layer in few seconds. So let's just concentrate here first. That here you can see the simplest method to understand, that is there is an outer layer, there is a middle layer, and there is an inside layer. Okay, so the outer layer is perimetrium, and the middle layer is myometrium, and the innermost layer is endometrium. So let me just tell you the functions of each and every layer. So the first layer, which is the perimetrium, which is the outermost layer, its function is nothing but it's basically acting as a covering of uterus's wall itself. Okay, so it basically covers the uterus wall. Whereas talking about myometrium, which is the middle layer, this layer consists of smooth muscle fibers which basically contracts strongly during the delivery of the baby. Okay, so the myometrium is the smoothest muscle fiber. It consists of smooth muscle fibers, and these layer basically contracts during the delivery of the baby itself. Talking about the innermost layer and the most important layer, that is endometrium. Endometrium, it consists of the glandular layer with some blood vessels. Okay, so these are the endometrium are the glandular layer, and it consists of blood vessels, right? And this layer is the major layer which basically undergoes cycles during the menstrual cycle, and this is the major layer where the process of pregnancy starts. Okay, or the process of fertilization, not the process of fertilization, but where the impregnation start basically. Okay, so here that is the endometrium is basically undergoes the cyclic changes during the menstrual cycle, and also this layer is really important where the pregnancy is starting. Okay, now moving on towards the third accessory duct system, which is the vagina. So vagina is a 10 centimeter long passage. From this passage itself, the menstrual flow and birth canal occurs. Okay, so this is the passage for the menstrual flow, and also it acts as the birth canal. And the opening, that is the ending of the vagina, is nothing but the vaginal orifice. Okay, so the opening of vagina is called as vaginal orifices. Okay, next, so we have already covered about the ovaries. We have already talked about some of the accessory duct system, that is the oviduct, and we have already talked about each and every uterus, and then later on we have discussed about vagina. Now let's just move on and talk about the accessory glands which is involved in case of female's reproductive system. So talking about the accessory glands, the gland which is involved in the female reproductive system is a pair of vestibular, or you can call it as Bartholin's glands. Okay, so this gland can be seen on each side of the vaginal orifices. Okay, so vaginal orifice is nothing but the opening of the vagina. So all this gland is basically seen in pairs around the vaginal orifices, right? Now you may be asking, what is the function of this particular gland, right? So talking about the function of this particular gland, this gland basically secretes a clear viscous fluid which serves as a lubricant during copulation. Okay, so this accessory gland, which is the Bartholin's gland or the vestibular gland, this gland basically secrete a viscous fluid which will act as a lubricant during the copulation. Okay, so it's a really major gland, right? So we have already covered a lot about female reproductive system, but there is a lot more yet to learn, right? So I'll be discussing that in my next video. So I'll see you there. Until then, bye bye and take care.